welcome to the Shelley Studio, and today I am working on my mission inspiration. This is the one for November. Mission Inspiration is a Facebook group by Mike Deacon, lots of fun. The first prompt I'm doing there was divide your page into 3 sections. So I figured I'd divide one side in half and the other keep it whole. And then the next prompt was add texture through a stencil. Now, I did one, and I'm using a magazine for this. The pages are kind of good, but they're not that stiff. And I had tried a different stencil and ended up having to tear out the page because it wouldn't release from the magazine paper. It was like totally glued on and just was a big mess. So I started over, but don't show you that I did it over again. So the colors were teal, sage, and pecan. I didn't exactly have the right colors, so I'm like, well, this blue will be nice to try. And as I'm painting it on, I'm like, ugh. This is kind of dark and depressing color. I mean, I know it's winter and all, but it's like not liking it, but I keep going, persevering, just keep going. I figured all else fails, I can lighten it up later, which I do a little bit. And it actually ends up working out. I don't know. Of course, my colors are not the pecan, sage, and teal. This is like some sort of gray blue, and then I do a sort of gray green, and it almost looks the same color. You'll see. I'm going to put it on here in a second. So here is the other color. And now this had the word sage in it, but look at that. It's just like gray. I'm like, well, that's not even a contrast or a different value of color. You can't even see it. So I do pull out just a green color and go over the top of it, which gives it a really bright, gives it a brightness. Let's put it that way, I guess. So I added the blue to keep that division there. And then I decide I want to see the white of my stenciling, so I take a baby wipe to it and try to wipe some of that off. It was a little dry, so it doesn't all come off, but it does a little bit, and it ends up not mattering because I'd go over that again with something else. Anyway, that's the fun thing about these mission inspirations and creating in a journal. Nobody has to see this. I mean, I share mine, but I don't mind. But when you're creating and experimenting and seeing what will happen, you know, it's going in a book. It's not going on a wall or something. So here I'm trying to blend it with the baby wipe, but that didn't blend at all. Alright, one of the prompts was paint with your fingers. I figured I needed some of this green on this side, so I just put a little bit. And I knew what my focal point was going to be, so I figured that would kind of be like grass. So it's like a grassy thing I'm doing with my fingers. The words for inspiration were sky, equal, leap, montage, and reflect. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about what word I'm going to use. Alright, so the next thing I do is still making marks. I decided maybe I wanted that stencil area to look like a fence, so I thought I could rub across the top of that with my fingers and just get the texture, but that didn't really work either. So many things not working. So I decided, well, we'll just give it an overall sort of brown around the texture area, and it'll still look like a fence. Sort of, maybe. And yeah, I do that for a little while, thinking I'm getting somewhere. Alright, so the next prompt was to use something unusual to make marks. I don't know, people make marks with everything. I don't know what's unusual and what's not. So this is a bunch of seed beads, and the end of the container is kind of a spiral. So I figured I would just stamp on there with that, and just the only reason I'm doing it, well, I want a brown on both sides, kind of spread that out, but just to fulfill the prompt. Then I think I'm making marks in there too, whatever. Then I have this idea that I start to think about the word reflect. And I'm like, well, maybe that could be a horizon, and then this could be like light reflecting on some water. I'm like, well, then what happened to my fence? I should have done this part first, but I didn't think about it. You know, so it's out of order, and so my fence looks like it's underwater. Whoop. I'm lucky I didn't take the paint off my page with that tape right there. I'm still thinking about how dark this page is, so I added a little bit of white, and I'm just going over this area, I guess it's the sky area, and decide to take the stencil to it and wipe off and kind of leave a pattern. Since it's just this big blank space, this will make it more interesting. I didn't use a huge load of paint, so. And then I just rubbed the other side over there, just in case something shows up, and you can see a little bit of something there. Trying to blend that so it looks normal. Alright. So here's where I decide my fence needs to come back on top. And I added a little Payne's Gray to that brown to make it a little bit darker. And then we're gonna stencil over the same textured spots again, just to put that back in the foreground. Sorry, it kind of cut. That helped a little bit, and this cuts too, because I think I was running out of memory on my memory card, but I added washi, that was part of the prompt, and then adding some circles punched with card or whatever to the project was one of the other prompts. So I decided to cut them in half, and we already know that's where I'm going to put my birds. Get those glued on there, and then yep, there's the prompt to include an animal, fish, or a bird. If I had had a fish, I might have done a bird going after a fish, but I have birds. And these were actually cut from a bird book that I got at a thrift store, which I saw it was full of birds. I'm like, oh, I have to have that. I'm just making sure it's all stuck down. I was going to try and remember the name of these two different birds, but they are the kind that build mud nests, I believe, from the book. So it kind of works that they're standing on these spherical shapes. That could be their nests, right? So I'm giving the circles a little bit of dimension, giving them a highlight. I think I want to highlight in there, and yeah, it didn't do much for me. So then I go in with a little bit, I just put a little bit pen and wet it down, trying to shade under the bird's feet, make it look like a shadow, and then shade the circle to make it look more like a sphere. Alright, and so the single word I decided to use is reflect, and I have this corrugated card lettering. I'm sure it was from Michaels. I've had it for quite a while. I'm surprised it still has most of the alphabet. That's what happens. You end up with all these consonants and no vowels. So I have a whole bunch with no vowels. I should just either put them as texture in background or something. Alright. On some project somewhere. When I run out of vowels. And I do kind of go around with this marker just to emphasize the word a little bit. I don't know if it really needed it, but I felt like I needed to put it on there. So I think I have fulfilled all the prompts on his list. If I didn't, oh whoops, I don't know. Hopefully I did. This actually turned out a lot better than I thought when I put that paint down to begin with. You'll have to tell me what you think. Do you think it worked? Might not be the right colors, but hey. I'm highlighting the feet because I kind of accidentally got a little darkness on the feet. And then just shading the edges a little bit, and then it will be done. So let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. I will link to the Facebook group in the description box below, so you can go check out the Facebook group if you're not a member. And if you'd like to give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.